The city lights blurred outside the car window as I was driven home, but they couldn't distract me from the swirling storm inside. 17 years. 17 years of my life, my dedication, my very essence poured into Apex Innovations, only to be tossed aside like yesterday's trash. Mr. Thompson's words, delivered with a chilling lack of emotion over a plate of untouched calamari, echoed in my ears. "We're letting you go." And then the casual, almost dismissive follow-up. "My nephew is ready to step into the role." His nephew, fresh out of college, green as grass, inheriting the kingdom I had painstakingly built. My heart hammered against my ribs, a painful drumbeat accompanying the replay of the lunch. I remember the anticipation I felt walking into that fancy restaurant. I genuinely believed Mr. Thompson was going to discuss the new expansion. My mind was buzzing with strategies, potential roadblocks, and solutions. I even had a small, hopeful thought that maybe, just maybe, a promotion was in the cards, a formal recognition of my tireless efforts. Instead, my world imploded. The calamari arrived, golden and inviting, but suddenly it felt like ashes in my mouth. Mr. Thompson, usually a man of booming laughter and grand gestures, was unusually subdued. He cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze. "Mark," he began, and my stomach tightened. He never called me Mark unless it was something serious. "We've made some difficult decisions about the company's future." My mind raced, trying to anticipate budget cuts, a new departmental structure. Never, not once did I consider that I would be the decision. "We appreciate your years of service," he continued, a practiced hollow line. "You've been an invaluable asset." The words felt like a cruel joke. Invaluable. If I was so invaluable, why was I sitting here being dismissed? Then came the gut punch. "We've decided to go in a different direction with the head of operations role. My nephew, Michael, has just graduated with his MBA, and we believe he's the right fit for the fresh perspective we need." A fresh perspective. That phrase, so innocent on its own, felt like a dagger twisting in an open wound. It was a euphemism, a polite way of saying, "You're old news." My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation, a performance review I'd missed, a project that had gone wrong. But there was nothing. My performance reviews had always been stellar. My initiatives had consistently saved the company significant money. I was the one who had navigated them through 2 recessions, who had streamlined their supply chain to be the envy of the industry. I stared at him, my mouth dry, unable to form a coherent response. The restaurant, moments ago a symphony of clinking glasses and hushed conversations, suddenly felt like a silent, suffocating tomb. He continued, oblivious to the earthquake he had just unleashed in my life. "Of course, we'll offer you a severance package, and we'll ensure a smooth transition." Smooth transition? How could there be a smooth transition when the very foundation of operations was about to be handed over to someone who wouldn't know a supply chain from a grocery list? I managed a weak nod, the betrayal a bitter taste on my tongue. I wanted to scream, to rage, to demand an explanation that made sense, but decades of corporate decorum held me captive. I simply said, "I understand." A lie, of course. I didn't understand, not one bit. The rest of the lunch passed in a blur of forced politeness and stilted conversation. I picked at my food, the once appetizing dishes now devoid of flavor. All I could think about was the enormity of what had just happened. My career, my stability, my future, all shattered in a single unexpected meal, with speculation about what was going wrong at Apex. Then the call came. It was Mr. Thompson. His voice, usually so confident and assured, sounded strained, almost desperate. "Mark," he began, and this time the use of my first name felt genuine, not condescending. "We're in a bit of a crisis here. The supply chain is completely out of whack and we can't seem to get a handle on it. Projects are stalled and we're losing clients. I let him sweat a little, feigning a calm that I didn't entirely feel. I heard, I said, my voice neutral. It sounds challenging. Challenging is an understatement, he admitted. Look, Mark, I know how things ended, and I truly regret it. We made a mistake, a big one. He paused, and I could almost hear him swallowing his pride. We need your help. We need you to come back as a consultant, just to help us sort this out. A small smile played on my lips. The trap was set, and he had walked right into it. Mr. Thompson, I said, my voice firm, my consulting fees are significantly higher now, and my schedule is quite full. I knew this was my moment. However, I continued, for Apex Innovations, given our history, I might be able to squeeze you in, but there are conditions. Anything, he practically pleaded. Name your price. My fee will be double my standard consulting rate, I stated, knowing it was exorbitant but justifiable given the urgency and their desperation. And I will report directly to the board, not to you, Mr. Thompson. I need full autonomy to assess the situation and implement solutions without any interference. There was a moment of silence on the other end, a pause as he processed the terms. I knew he was weighing his options, his pride warring with the dire reality of Apex's situation. Finally, he sighed. Agreed. When can you start? Tomorrow morning, I replied, a sense of quiet triumph settling over me. The revelation. The return to Apex Innovations was surreal. The receptionists, the security guards, even the cleaning staff greeted me with looks of relief, as if a long-lost savior had returned. My former colleagues approached me cautiously, their eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and unspoken sympathy. I walked through the familiar halls, the sounds and smells of the office instantly transporting me back. But this time, I wasn't just an employee, I was an independent force, a surgeon called in to save a dying patient. My first few weeks were a whirlwind of assessments. I dug into the company's data, interviewed key personnel, and observed Michael's chaotic attempts to manage the operations. It was worse than I had imagined. The supply chain was a tangled mess of miscommunication and mismanagement. Contracts with long-standing suppliers had been allowed to lapse. Inventory was either overflowing or completely depleted, with no accurate tracking system in place. Production schedules were a joke, constantly shifting and never met. Michael, when I interacted with him, was visibly stressed and overwhelmed. He was a bright kid, no doubt, but he had been thrown into the deep end without a life raft. He tried to project an air of confidence, but his eyes betrayed his fear and inadequacy. He'd often defer to me, seeking my approval, which I granted sparingly, always guiding him towards the right solution rather than giving him the answer directly. It wasn't about humiliating him, it was about exposing the fundamental flaw in Mr. Thompson's decision. As I compiled my report, the evidence mounted, stark and undeniable. It wasn't just operational inefficiency, it was a systemic breakdown fueled by a lack of experience and an absence of accountability. I meticulously documented every misstep, every lost contract, every delayed project, and every dollar Apex Innovations had hemorrhaged since my departure. And prominently, I highlighted the direct correlation between Michael's appointment and the company's precipitous decline. The day of the board meeting arrived, a palpable tension in the air. I walked into the grand boardroom, the same room where I had presented countless successful strategies over the years. This time, the stakes were far higher. Mr. Thompson sat at the head of the table, his face pale and drawn. Michael was there too, looking small and nervous beside him. I began my presentation, my voice calm and steady, despite the tremor of anticipation in my stomach. I started with a high-level overview of the current operational state, using clear, concise language and compelling visuals. Then I delved into the specifics, layer by layer, peeling back the veneer of pretense to reveal the raw, ugly truth. I showed them the financial impact of the supply chain failures, the lost revenue from missed deadlines, and the damage to the company's reputation. I presented evidence of cancelled orders and frustrated clients. And then I laid out the crux of the issue: the sudden and inexplicable change in leadership, replacing a seasoned professional with an inexperienced family member. I presented Michael's specific missteps, not to shame him, but to illustrate the systemic problem of placing unqualified individuals in critical roles. The board members, initially polite, grew increasingly agitated. Their murmurs turned into gasps, then into angry whispers. They exchanged disbelieving glances as I unveiled the full extent of the damage. Mr. Thompson shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his face a mask of shame and anger. He tried to interrupt me once, but I simply held up a hand, my gaze unwavering. "Mr. Thompson, I'm reporting directly to the board. Your time to speak will come." Finally, I concluded my presentation with a stark summary. Apex Innovations is on the brink of collapse, not due to market conditions, but due to internal mismanagement and a severe lapse in judgment at the executive level. The decision to remove experienced leadership for the sake of nepotism has cost this company dearly, both financially and in terms of its standing in the industry. Silence hung heavy in the room. Then, one of the board members, a stern-faced woman who'd been a long-time advocate for me, spoke. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice cutting through the tension, "is this report accurate?" He mumbled something, a weak attempt at a defense. There were unforeseen challenges. Unforeseen challenges or foreseeable consequences of poor leadership? Another board member interjected, his voice laced with indignation. The discussion quickly devolved into a heated debate. The board members, armed with my irrefutable evidence, turned on Mr. Thompson. They demanded answers, accountability. His excuses crumbled under the weight of their scrutiny. It became clear, very quickly, that his reign was over. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the chairman of the board, a man I deeply respected, cleared his throat. "Mr. Thompson," he said, his voice grave, "it is with deep regret that we must ask for your resignation, effective immediately." Mr. Thompson looked stunned, defeated. He opened his mouth, then closed it, his face a mixture of humiliation and shock. He stood up slowly, gathered his papers, and left the room without a word, Michael trailing silently behind him. The chairman turned to me, a look of profound relief on his face. "Mark," he began, "we owe you a tremendous debt of gratitude. You've uncovered the truth and you've shown us the path forward. We believe you are the only person who can truly stabilize this company and lead us out of this crisis. We would like to offer you the position of interim CEO." My heart pounded. This was it, the ultimate vindication. The very role I had once dreamed of, now offered to me under the most extraordinary circumstances, but I also knew the immense responsibility that came with it. This wasn't about personal triumph anymore. It was about saving the company I had dedicated so much of my life to. "I accept," I said, my voice steady, "but with conditions." The board members exchanged surprised glances. "First, this will be an interim role. My goal is to stabilize the company and implement sustainable systems, not to stay on permanently. Second, I will have complete authority to make the necessary changes, even if they are unpopular. And third, I will ensure that Michael, Mr. Thompson's nephew, is reassigned to a junior role where he can truly learn the ropes from the ground up with proper mentorship. He's not malicious, just inexperienced, and he deserves a chance to learn, but not at the expense of this company's future." The board members nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting a mixture of relief and admiration. They understood the gravity of the situation and the necessity of my terms. The resolution. My tenure as interim CEO was intense but incredibly rewarding. I immediately set about dismantling the chaos and rebuilding from the ground up. I brought in a team of trusted experts to help me with various aspects of the operational overhaul. We renegotiated supplier contracts, implemented a robust inventory management system, and streamlined the production schedule. Communication channels were re-established, and accountability was enforced at every level. I made sure to mentor Michael personally. He was initially resentful, but as he saw the sheer complexity of the operations and the depth of my knowledge, his attitude shifted. He became eager to learn, absorbing every piece of advice I offered. He was a quick study, and I saw genuine potential in him, potential that had been stifled by being pushed into a role far beyond his capabilities. I assigned him to a junior position in the supply chain department, where he could gain hands-on experience under the guidance of a seasoned manager. He was no longer a threat. He was a valuable, albeit raw, asset. Within 6 months, the transformation at Apex Innovations was remarkable. The supply chain was running smoothly, projects were back on track, and clients were expressing renewed confidence. The stock price began to recover, and industry analysts were praising the company's remarkable turnaround. During my final board meeting as interim CEO, I presented my succession plan. I had identified a brilliant and dedicated woman from within the company, someone who had worked tirelessly alongside me during the crisis and demonstrated exceptional leadership qualities. Her name was Anya Sharma, and she had started at Apex around the same time I had, working her way up from within the marketing department to head of product development. She had a keen understanding of both operations and market needs. Anya is the ideal candidate to lead Apex Innovations into its next chapter, I told the board, detailing her qualifications and her vision for the company. She has the vision, the experience, and the dedication to ensure Apex's continued success. The board, having witnessed my decisive leadership and the positive results, readily agreed. Anya was appointed the new CEO, and I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. I had not only saved the company, but I had also left it in capable hands, ensuring a future based on merit and integrity, not nepotism. As for me, I didn't stay on. My work was done. I had proved my point, and in so doing, had opened up new avenues for my career. I continued my consulting work, now even more in demand, but with a renewed sense of purpose and control over my own destiny. The experience at Apex Innovations had been painful, but it had also been the catalyst for a remarkable journey, one that ultimately led me to a place of greater fulfillment and empowerment. The bitterness had faded, replaced by a quiet strength and a clear understanding that sometimes the greatest setbacks can lead to the most extraordinary comebacks.